We're gonna get this party started. We're gonna get this party started. We're gonna get this party started. It's a Bible reading party. We're gonna get this party started. We're gonna get this party started. We're gonna get this party started. It's a Bible reading party. A O A O A O A O. Gonna get this party started. And I'm so happy that you are here to join me. Hi, YouTube. I forgot where to look. Hi, Facebook. Hi, YouTube. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Opportunity Tuesday. It is now Opportunity Tuesday. Yes. Oh, it looks like I'm buffering on YouTube. No. YouTube, you know I have a love-hate relationship with you. Okay, there we go. Oh yes, it's buffering quite badly. Well, you can watch me on Facebook or you can watch me on YouTube. Either case, I'm gonna be here. Oh, I hate that it's buffering like that. I don't know why. In either case, the time is now. Let me do this in the right order. The time is now 7:20 a.m. Make sure I can get to my other camera. Oh yeah, perfect. The time is now 7:20 a.m. Texas time. That's Central Standard Time. It is Tuesday, Opportunity Tuesday. And it is July 7th, 2020. And yeah, it's Bible reading party time. We're in week 28. Week 28. Going to keep it straight because it's week 28. Going to keep it straight. Week 28 of reading the Bible. And I've got folks in the room over at YouTube. I don't know about Facebook. I see an eyeball keep looking at me, but it never tells me who it is. But the Wiz is the early bird in the room over on YouTube saying, "Morning, Kenya." And she said it just like that. And Eva Frazier's in the room says, "Good morning, everyone." And she said it just like that. Then Nicole came in. She said, "Good morning, 40 fam." And she said it just like that. Then she said, "Bless the like button." I hit the like button. Like button blessed. It's a great day. Have you blessed the like button? Facebook? Facebook's got all the different emojis on there, but YouTube does too. Who's ready to get this party started? Raise your hand and said, me. Good job. Yes, this is my Bible. Always feel free to let me know what kind of Bible you're reading in the comments section if you are. If you're not, then just follow along and listen to the sound of my voice. There we go. Boy, things sure do look choppy today. Do things look choppy on your side for whoever's watching on Facebook? Well, not Facebook because that looks pretty good. For you guys over in YouTube, do things look choppy? Things look choppy to me. Anyhow, let's share my screen so we can see what are we reading today. What are we reading today? This is the cover of my Bible study guide. For those of you who want to know what I'm using to study the Bible, the author is Diane Stortz. The title is A Woman's Guide to Reading the Bible in a Year, a Life-Changing Journey into the Heart of God. This is the Kindle download version, and there is another version. There's a printed version available, is what I was trying to say. We are in week 28, so let me turn the page and turn the page and turn the page until I get to the right layout. See, each week has its own theme, and we're in the theme of, anybody remember what this week's theme is? Last week was Remember the Past. This week is, oh man, my laptop is super slow today. Hello, viewer on Facebook. Grab your Bible. It's time for the Bible reading party. Oh man, my laptop is super slow today. Okay, I know that I'm in the book of Chronicles. There we go. We're in week 28. Week 28, the theme for this week is exalted over all. Exalted over all. Last week was remember the past. The week before that was peace and praise. The week before that was disobedience, decline, and disaster. But this week, the theme is exalted over all. And if I show the page, it will give a layout of like a summary or synopsis of what's going on. So that part I read yesterday, talking about the second half of Chronicles, plus we're going to go into Colossians. And in the gold rectangle that I'm showing people on YouTube, if you want to see what we're seeing, you got to come over to YouTube. The channel is Boulevard 40, Boulevard 40, hashtag BLVD40, or hashtag Bible reading party, just like it says in the title. But in the gold box, we see yesterday we were reading Chronicles 16 through 18. Today I'm reading Chronicles 19, 20, 21, and 22. Checkpoints for the week are an angel's drawn sword, the hope of glory, handwritten by Paul, the veil, cymbals, harps, and trumpets. And as a friendly reminder, this channel is being brought to you by thebiblein1year.com. Head over to thebiblein1year.com to find resources so that you can read the Bible in 1 year. Yes, check here often because weekly I will be adding something new. The sister site of the Bible in 1 year is Covered Head. Yes, where we discuss all things dealing with the covered head. We can go as deep or as light as you like, but that's what that particular website's about. For y'all women folk who like to wrap your hair up, wear scarves and turbans and African wraps and nice little hats and things like that. Yeah, we're going to be talking about all that kind of stuff. Whether it's a cap, a cover, or concealment, we're going to be talking about all that on coveredhead.com. All right, let's get back to it. Oh boy, it looks like there's a lot of buffering today. Ooh-wee. No buffering, no chopping. Everything's nice and clear. Good sound. Thanks for letting me know, because YouTube has got me thinking things don't look so hot, but I'm going to move on. So 19, 20, and 21, I showed you my Bible. This is my Bible dictionary that I do use from time to time. It's the Nelson's Compact Series. It is very helpful for knowing how to pronunciate how to pronounce the different Bible names in here and other fun stuff. Got that off to the side. Let's do a recap, shall we? Yes, let's show. Okay. Oh, I wrote something on my hand I was supposed to be doing. Oh yeah, I was going to try to stand up this time and use a Bible stand. Actually, I don't have a Bible stand, but I do have a recipe book stand. And I was going to do that, so I got to remember to do that afterwards. And something about a website. Well, it's a good thing I washed my hands to keep them clean, but I washed off my message. 16, 17, 18. What happened yesterday? In Proverbs? No, why am I open to Proverbs? Maybe the Lord wants me to know. Proverbs 16. We can make our own plans? but the Lord gives the right answer. That's what I was about to read, you guys. I don't know why. Maybe somebody needed to hear that, but I need to go to the book we're in. We are in the book of First Chronicles 16, not Proverbs 16. This is what happened yesterday in chapter 16. They brought the Ark of God and placed it inside the special tent David had prepared for it. David had a song of praise. And from what I went into detail from the Bible dictionary, the reason why his wife, Michal, was kind of contemptuous about his dancing for the Lord is because probably more than likely the priestly garments that he had on wasn't really tailored for dancing, and so he was letting it all hang out unintentionally, but he was really putting his heart and soul into his dancing because it was so joyous, and that's why Michal was probably upset with him. David's song of praise, there was a long prayer here in chapter 16. Chapter 17 talks about the Lord's covenant promise to David. Also talks about David's prayer of thanks. In chapter 18, it's talking about David's military victories. Chapter 19 is today. Yes, chapter 19 is today. Love that Irish cream. Chapter 19, David defeats the Ammonites. Sometime after this, King Nahash of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun became king. David said, I am going to show loyalty to Hanun, because his father Nahash was always loyal to me. So David sent messengers to express sympathy to Hanun about his father's death. But when David's ambassadors arrived in the land of Ammon, the Ammonite commander said to Hanun, Do you really think these men are coming here to honor your father? No, David has sent them to spy out the land so they can come in and conquer it. So Hanun seized David's ambassadors and shaved them, cut off their robes at the buttocks, and sent them back to David in shame. So, real quick, you guys remember the other day when I read for an hour and a half and I was reading to myself because I was muted? There's something that I read in this dictionary that I did not read when I did re-recorded it over. There's something I didn't read and I want to read it right now because I think it's pretty significant to what I just read. Significance. I think it's pretty significant to what I just read. So I was going on and on and on and on like Erykah Badu, on and on and on and on. I'm reading the Bible, but the sound was muted. Yes, there is something that I read about Elisha, the prophet Elisha, just because I was flipping through it looking for atonement. Talked about atonement that day, and I was flipping through and I seen the word bald, and I'm like, why is the word bald in here? And it was talking about Elisha. So since I just read something about them getting shaven, I'm going to take a pause for the cause and I'm going to read about being shaved. And we're not talking about women, we're talking about men here. And just so you know, I was referring to Elisha last time. Remember the prophet Elisha, Elijah had just been taken up into the heavens. Elisha had asked before Elijah went up into the heavens, just double my portion of your spiritual gifts. I want to be able to do what you can do and then some. And so Elisha was blessed to get double the powers that Elijah did. And one of the things that he did is, so there's this group of boys. The Bible says group of boys, but it ended up being like 42. So it's like a mob of boys. Who knows if they're little boys, older boys, teenagers, whatever. But they're like, go away, Baldy, go away, Baldy, go away, Baldy. And they're just taunting him and teasing him, right? And at the time that I was reading it, I'm thinking, okay, he's bald, so what? And Elisha cursed them. Elisha cursed them, and two bears came out of the woods and mauled all 42 of those boys, right? And I'm like, well, golly, I mean, is it that serious? So let's read this heading here. Atonement. Yes, I talked about atonement, and this as I was flipping from back to front, I came across this word. So I'm going to read this now, and it actually applies to today. Baldness. What is the significance of baldness in the Bible? Because the Israelites regarded the hair as a special ornament and glory, the condition of baldness carried a stigma of shame. This way of thinking probably expressed Israel's disgust for the practices of certain pagans who customarily shaved their heads. To shave one's head was to behave like a Canaanite, a person associated with idolatrous and immoral practices. So, bald head, baldy, baldy, go away, baldy, bald head was a term of contempt and derision hurled by some youths at the prophet Elisha. Go back to 2 Kings and read that. 2 Kings chapter 2 and 23. The prophets mention baldness as a sign of mourning. You can read about that in Isaiah 15 and 2 and Jeremiah 7 and 29. Baldness is also used symbolically to indicate the barrenness of Philistia after the judgment of God. And you can read about that in Jeremiah 47 and 5. So baldness was not a good thing in this particular time. And so let's jump back into the reading for today to shame and basically humiliate these ambassadors that came through. We're in chapter 19, and I'm at verse 3. The Ammonite commanders said to Hanun, "Do you really think these men are coming here to honor your father?" No. So David had sent them to spy out the land so they can come and conquer it. So Hanun seized David's ambassadors and shaved them. He shaved them, cut off their robes at the buttocks. Basically, all their parts are hanging out. So that's another layer of humiliation, and sent them back in shame. So anyways, that's why I wanted to go back into the dictionary and talk about the baldness and the meaning of the shaveness. Beards and hair, that's manliness. That means something significant to the people of this time. Verse 5 says, when David heard what happened to the men, he sent messengers to tell them, stay at Jericho until your beards grow out, and then come back. For they felt deep shame because of their appearance. When the people of Ammon realized how seriously they had angered David, Hanun and the Ammonites sent 75,000 pounds of silver to hire chariots and charioteers from Aram Naharaim, Aram Maacah, and Zobah. They also hired 32,000 chariots and secured the support of King Maacah and its army. These forces camped at Medeba, where they were joined by the Ammonite troops that Hanun had recruited from his own towns. When David heard about this, he sent Joab and all his warriors to fight them. The Ammonite troops came out and drew up their battle lines at the entrance of the city, while the other kings positioned themselves to fight in the open fields. When Joab saw that he would have to fight on both the front and the rear, he chose some of Israel's elite troops and placed them under his personal command to fight the Arameans in the fields. He left the rest of the army under the command of his brother Abishai, who was to attack the Ammonites. If the Arameans are too strong for me, then come over and help me, Joab told his brother. And if the Ammonites are too strong for you, I will help you. Be courageous. Let us fight bravely for our people and the cities of our God. May the Lord's will be done. Verse 14 says, when Joab and his troops attacked, the Arameans began to run away. And when the Ammonites saw the Arameans running, they also ran from Abishai and retreated into the city. Then Joab returned to Jerusalem. The Arameans now realized that they were no match for Israel, so they sent messengers and summoned additional Aramean troops from the other side of the Euphrates River. These troops were under the command of Shobach, the commander of Hadadezer's forces. When David heard what was happening, he mobilized all Israel, crossed the Jordan River, and positioned his troops in battle formation. Then David engaged the Arameans in battle, and they fought against him. But again, the Arameans fled from the Israelites. This time, David's forces killed 7,000 charioteers and 40,000 foot soldiers, including Shobach, the commander of the army. When Hadadezer's allies saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they surrendered to David and became his subjects. After that, the Arameans were no longer willing to help the Ammonites. And that is chapter 19 of the first book of Chronicles. This is not supported by, sponsored by Wendy's. But Wendy's, if you want to support me, you know where to find me. That'd be cool. This Bible reading party is supported to you by Wendy's, the home of America's favorite breakfast. They just don't know it yet. Trying to save a little bit in there, but I don't want it to go cold. And now, chapter 20. David captures Rabbah. In the spring of the year, when kings normally go out to war, Joab led the Israelite army in successful attacks against the land of the Ammonites. In the process, he laid siege to the city of Rabbah. However, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. When David arrived at Rabbah, he removed the crown from the king's head, and it was placed on his own head. The crown was made of gold and set with gems, and he found that it weighed 75 pounds. That made my neck hurt. David took a vast amount of plunder from the city. He also made slaves of the people of Rabbah and forced them to labor with saws, iron picks, and iron axes. That is how David dealt with the people of all the Ammonite towns. Then David and all the army returned to Jerusalem. In verse 4, it's talking about battles against Philistine giants. After this, war broke out with the Philistines at Gezer, and they fought Sibbecai from Hushah. As they fought, Sibbecai from Hushah killed Saph, a descendant of the giants, and so the Philistines were subdued. During another battle with the Philistines, Elhanan, son of Jair, killed Lami, the brother of Goliath of Gath. The handle of Lami's spear was as thick as a weaver's beam. I'd really like to know how big is a weaver's beam, because they keep referring to that weaver's beam. I'm thinking of a loom. A loom. And a loom is something you usually have to like sit down to. I'm thinking it's the size of a bed. Because think of a rug, like a floor rug, and they have to loom it on this big giant white thing. And I'm thinking maybe that big. Who knows? If you know, let me know where to look for it, and I'll put up an image next time. Verse 6 says, in another battle with the Philistines at Gath, they encountered a huge man with 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all, who was also a descendant of the giants. But when he defied and taunted Israel, he was killed by Jonathan, the son of David's brother Shemaiah. These Philistines were descendants of the giants of Gath, but David and his warriors killed them. That is chapter 20. And unless there's any questions from anyone, comments, insights, understandings, we're going to go on to chapter 21. David takes a census. Ooh, remember? I think this was not a good thing. Was this the bad census? Or was that something that Saul did? Let's find out. Satan. Well, when you start a sentence off with the word Satan, you know that's not going to be good. Woo! Hold on. This is chapter 21. Satan rose up against Israel and caused David to take a census of the people of Israel. Yeah, I think this is the bad one. So David said to Joab and the commanders of the army, take a census of all the people, from Beersheba in the south to Dan in the north, and bring me a report so I may know how many there are. But Joab replied, may the Lord increase the number of his people 100 times over. But why, my lord the king, do you want to do this? Are they not all your servants? Why must you cause Israel to sin? But the king insisted that they take the census. So Joab traveled throughout all Israel to count the people. Then he returned to Jerusalem and reported the number of people to David. There were 1,100,000 warriors in all Israel who could handle a sword, and 470,000 in Judah. But Joab did not include the tribes of Levi and Benjamin in the census because he was so distressed at what the king had made him do. Now there's judgment for David's sin. Now remind me before we get out of here. I got to look that up because I remember finding out why, because they took a census quite often, but this particular one he wasn't supposed to do, and it was a sin for him to do that. And I looked it up, but I want to find out again why. In verse 7 of chapter 21, it says, Judgment for David's sin. God was very displeased with the census, and he punished Israel for it. Then David said to God, I have sinned greatly by taking this census. Please forgive my guilt for doing this foolish thing. Then the Lord spoke to Gad, David's seer. This was the message. Go and say to David, this is what the Lord says. I will give you 3 choices. One of these punishments, and I will inflict it on you. So Gad came to David and said, these are the choices the Lord has given you. You may choose 3 years of famine, 3 months of destruction by the sword of your enemies, or 3 days of severe plague as the angel of the Lord brings devastation throughout the land of Israel. Decide what answer I should give the Lord who sent me. I'm in a desperate situation, David replied to Gad, but let me fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercy is very great. Do not let me fall into human hands. So the Lord sent a plague upon Israel, and 70,000 people died as a result. And God sent an angel to destroy Jerusalem. But just as the angel was preparing to destroy it, the Lord relented and said to the death angel, Stop. That is enough. And at that moment, the angel of the Lord was standing by the threshing floor of Araunah, the Jebusite. David looked up and saw the angel of the Lord standing between heaven and earth with his sword drawn. Ding, 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 ding. With his sword drawn, reaching out over Jerusalem. So David and the leaders of Israel put on burlap to show their deep distress and fell face down on the ground. And David said to God, I am the one who called for the census. I am the one who has sinned and done wrong. But these people are as innocent as sheep. What have they done? Oh, Lord my God, let your anger fall against me and my family, but do not destroy your people. And in verse 18, David builds an altar. Then the angel of the Lord told Gad to instruct David to go up and build an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So David went up to do what the Lord had commanded him through Gad. Araunah, who was busy threshing wheat at the time, turned and saw the angel there. His 4 sons, who were with him, ran away and hid. When Araunah saw David approaching, he left his threshing floor and bowed before David with his face to the ground. David said to Araunah, Let me buy this threshing floor from you at its full price. Then I will build an altar to the Lord there, so he will stop the plague. Take it, my lord, the king, and use it as you wish, Araunah said to David. I will give the oxen for the burnt offerings and the threshing boards for wood to build a fire on the altar, and the wheat for the grain offering. I will give it all to you. But King David replied to Araunah, No, I insist on buying it for the full price. I will not take what is yours and give it to the Lord. I will not present offerings that have cost me nothing. So David gave Araunah 600 pieces of gold in payment for the threshing floor. David built an altar there to the Lord and sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings. And when David prayed, the Lord answered him by sending fire from heaven to burn up the offering on the altar. Then the Lord spoke to the angel who put the sword back into its sheath. When David saw that the Lord had answered his prayer, he offered sacrifices there at Araunah's threshing floor. At that time, the tabernacle of the Lord and the altar of the burnt offering that Moses had made in the wilderness were located at the place of worship in Gibeon. But David was not able to go there to inquire of God because he was terrified by the drawn sword of the angel of the Lord. That is chapter 21. I've got 3 questions/commentaries. Question 1. What was significant, if anything, about the Lord relenting right at the threshing floor? Does that mean something? Is it symbolic of something? Is it just, I don't think there's any coincidence with anything, but I'm just wondering. There's a plague, 3 days, and then the angel of the Lord came down and was ready to finish off Jerusalem, but he stopped right there at the threshing floor. I'm curious, what does the threshing floor symbolize, if anything? Two, this is the second time that God has sent down fire for an offering. You guys remember what the other one was, right? Now, let me see. The very first time I read about this, I didn't even think about it. The very first time we read about this was in 2 Samuel. The second time we read about God sending down fire for an offering was for prophet Elijah. Prophet Elijah. This is back when we were talking about King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. And, they had basically murdered, assassinated, eliminated, executed, however you want to put it. They were getting rid of all the prophets. They wanted their gods, their pagan idols to be worshipped. And they didn't want these other prophets to be there to cause trouble. So that it ended up being like Elijah was the only faithful prophet left. And that's when he went up to Mount Carmel. He said, okay, we're going to build these two altars, or not altars, but, not altars. What am I trying to say? Am I saying altar? Yeah, altar. I don't know why I was thinking that was the wrong word. So yeah, we're going to build these two altars. We're going to put these two animals up there for the sacrifice. I want you to make your God make this fire happen. And then I'm going to pray to my God to make it happen. And after dousing his altar with water, which was not conducive to making water, and making sure there was no reason for it to catch on fire by himself, Elijah, after the other prophets and priests could not make their light on fire by itself, he prayed to God, and God sent down fire from heaven to make the burnt offering. And this is the second time. Well, actually, this is the first time that it happened, but it seems like it's a recurring theme of that. And then the third comment that I've got is the drawn sword. The drawn sword. The angel didn't put his sword back into his sheath, until after the offering was made. I don't know why that stuck to my mind, but we're reading here in verse 26. They built the altar. David prayed, the Lord answered him, sending the fire from heaven to burn up the offering. And not until verse 27, then the Lord spoke to the angel who put the sword back into its sheath. So I just thought that was interesting. Here's this angel sitting here ready because the Lord has told him, destroy this area or destroy these people. The angel is just sitting there this whole time. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the terror in your heart looking up between heaven and earth? They said the angel is waiting to drop that fatal blow. And it wasn't until this offering was made, which can't be done like that. You got to chop wood, you got to stack this stuff up, you got to kill the animal, and all this time the angel of the Lord is sitting there with that sword. Anyway, those are my 3 commentary pieces. Now we're moving on to chapter 22. All right. Then David said, this will be the location for the temple of the Lord God and the place of the altar for Israel's burnt offerings. In verse 2, we talk about preparations for the temple. So David gave orders to call together the foreigners living in Israel, and he assigned them the task of preparing finished stone for building the temple of God. David provided large amounts of iron for the nails that would be needed for the doors and the gates and for the clamps, and he gave more bronze that could be weighed. He also provided innumerable cedar logs, for the men of Tyre and Sidon had brought vast amounts of cedar to David. David said, my son Solomon is still young and inexperienced, and since the temple is to be built for the Lord, must be a magnificent structure, famous and glorious throughout the world, I will begin making preparations for it now. So David collected vast amounts of building materials, before his death. Then David sent for his son Solomon and instructed him to build a temple for the Lord, the God of Israel. My son, I wanted to build a temple to honor the name of the Lord, my God, David told him. But the Lord said to me, you've killed many men in the battles you have fought, and since you have shed so much blood in my sight, you will not be the one to build a temple to honor my name. But you will have a son who will be a man of peace. I will give him peace with his enemies in all the surrounding lands. His name will be Solomon, and I will give peace and quiet to Israel during his reign. He is the one who will build a temple to honor my name. He will be my son, and I will be his father, and I will secure the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. Now, my son, may the Lord be with you and give you success as you follow his directions in building the temple of the Lord your God. And may the Lord give you wisdom and understanding, that you may obey the law of the Lord your God as you rule over Israel. For you will be successful if you carefully obey the decrees and regulations that the Lord gave to Israel through Moses. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or lose heart. I've worked hard to provide materials for building the temple of the Lord, nearly 4,000 tons of gold, 40,000 tons of silver, and so much iron and bronze that it cannot be weighed. I have also gathered timber and stone for the walls, though you may need to add more. You have a large number of skilled stonemasons and carpenters and craftsmen of every kind. You have expert goldsmiths and silversmiths and workers of bronze and iron. Now, begin the work, and may the Lord be with you. Then David ordered the leaders of Israel, all the leaders of Israel, to assist Solomon in this project. The Lord your God is with you, he declared. He has given you peace with the surrounding nations. He has handed them over to me, and they are now subject to the Lord and his people. Now, seek the Lord your God with all your heart and soul. Build the sanctuary of the Lord God, so that you can bring back the ark of the Lord's covenant and the holy vessels of God into the temple, built to honor the Lord's name. That is chapter 22, and that is all for today. That has been chapters 19, 20, 21, and 22 of the first book of Chronicles, in which we talk about David defeating the Ammonites, David capturing Rabbah, battles against Philistine giants, David taking a census. Aha, I was supposed to be looking that up. Judgment for David's sin for taking the census, David building an altar, and preparations for the temple. And yes, you know what? Even though a lot of this is a review of what we already read in 2 Samuel, it's a little bit more insight. Like, for example, this is actually telling why God did not want David to build the temple. Before it just says no. I think it was explained more like, I've never lived in a house. I've never asked you guys to build a house for me. I've always lived in a tent and gone wherever my people have gone. And now it's a little bit more specific. God is saying, David, you got a little too much blood on your hands. You've done well, but I want my temple to be built from somebody of peace, a peaceful person. So that's a little bit more insight that we get today. And also the preparations. Even though David didn't build the temple, he did a lot of work and put a lot of things into place so that the legacy would still be going through him. It would happen through his son. You know what? On my main channel here, and with some of the other projects that I'm trying to put into place, I kind of feel like David like that. Like, it's really a struggle for me to get my businesses going and off the ground. But I feel like if I put in enough hard effort and work, even if I don't see like the whole success of it in my time, if I play my cards right, and if I work hard enough, and if I put in enough sweat equity and blood, sweat, and tears, my kids will be able to enjoy it. My kids will be able to enjoy it. So anyways, I know that has nothing to do with the Bible, but I'm just thinking like, wow, David did all of that work and he actually wasn't able to build it, but he set it up for his son to be able to do it. I don't know. I guess I'm feeling not nostalgic, maternal right now. I'm feeling extra maternal right now. I'm just thinking as a parent, like, you love God that much and you love your son that much. Because he could have just been like, okay, God, I'm not going to build the temple. All right. Sure is going to be a lot of work. Oh, well, hope my son's up to it. No, he put things into place so his son wouldn't have to, so all his son had to do was do the work. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about that if you're watching in the live chat or if you're watching this after the fact on the replay. If you have any commentary on that, or if not, then that's fine. That's just what I was thinking. Like, how cool that the father put things into place so the son could execute them. All right. What was I supposed to be looking up? I got short-term memory issues. Hold on. Uh, the census. The census. I was supposed to be looking up the census. All right. I don't think it's gonna be in here, but I'm gonna look. I think the last time I found it, it was actually on Google. So this is what a census is. That's all it's going to tell me. A census is an official counting and registration of citizens, a property evaluation for tax purposes in early Rome. The first numbering of people in the Old Testament occurred at the time of Exodus. All men 20 years of age or older who were able to go to war were counted. And you can read about that in Numbers, chapter 1, verses 2 through 46. One purpose of the census was to help in the distribution of land. After the Babylonian captivity, there was another census, in talking about Ezra 2, of men to show how many had returned from captivity and also as an aid for the distribution of the land. In the New Testament times, the Roman government conducted periodic countings of the people to assess the amount of tax their country should pay to the treasury of the Roman Empire. The New Testament mentions two censuses. At the time of Jesus' birth, Joseph and Mary went to Bethlehem to be registered. This was probably a census required of all nations under the rule of Rome. All citizens were required to return to their places of birth for an official registration of their property for tax purposes. The second Roman census was conducted to make an assessment of the property of Judea in AD 6. At this time, Judea came under direct Roman rule. Because of this, Judas of Galilee incited a revolt, stating that the Jews should be ruled by God rather than by a foreign power. The Roman system of taking censuses began in 10 through 9 BC. Such a registration took place every 14 years. But that's not the answer I'm looking for. I try my best to get these from reputable sites. I don't remember where I got it from last time. I have to, when I was on the other channel, I actually put the link in there. I'm gonna, BibleStudy.org. It looks like it's still highlighted from the last time I went there. So I'm gonna wrap this up just so we can understand, the reason for this plague that has just come on to the people. David had three choices: 3 months of war, 3 days of plague, or 3 years of 3 years of famine? 3 years of famine, 3 months of being at war, or three days of a plague. So let's look at this. I think this is the one I went to. Why was David punished for a census? The book of 1 Samuel and 1 Chronicles, because they're basically mirroring each other, discuss King David and his taking of a census. Why was he punished by God for doing this? Answer: the taking of a census by David or anyone else is not a sin in itself. The reason for doing it, however, certainly can be and is something that might be worthy of being punished for. The book of Chronicles tells us that Satan the devil, that is what it said, who was against ancient Israel, moved or provoked King David to count his troops. Satan moved in spiritual warfare against the whole nation of Israel and not just the king. With his cunning ways, the devil sent out to entice David to sin by numbering his army through a census, which is exactly what he did. The King James Bible translation of 2 Samuel 24:1 unfortunately tends to give the reader the wrong impression regarding the motivation behind the census. Young's literal translation offers a more accurate explanation of what transpired. Samuel states, "And the anger of Jehovah addeth to burn against Israel, and an adversary, Satan, moveth David about them, saying, Go, number Israel and Judah." It was Satan the devil who moved David to disobey God. The king seemed to have been prompted by a feeling of pride and ambitious curiosity. The devil tempted, but the king went along with it and wanted to use the census as evidence to trust in his own power, not God's. It was his vanity and the desire to exalt himself in his own mind that got David in trouble. Looking at the scriptures, we can know that there is an evil intent by their content. Anytime Satan is involved, you can be sure he intends to get someone to sin. He put the thought in David's mind that if he knew the number of young men under his rule, meaning those fit for war, he could brag or boast about what a great king he was by the size of his army. Taking a census was a common way to gauge a nation's potential strength in battle. Joab, commander of David's army, tried to warn him not to number Israel so that he and the nation would not be punished. His wise counsel, however, was unheeded. It says Easton's Illustrated Bible Dictionary, it's a different kind of dictionary, also has some interesting comments regarding this incident. It states that David acted out of pride and a desire to glorify himself. He had come to the point in his life where he was relying far more on his own strength and that of his army rather than on God. After his sin, God told David to choose one of three ways to be punished. The first way was to have a famine throughout the land for 7 years. The second choice of correction was to flee from his enemies for 3 months. David knew what this was like. He knew what it was like to be on the run. That's right. David knew what this was like, as he had many times fled from Saul and even had to flee from his son Absalom. The third way of being punished was 3 days of pestilence, a deadly epidemic, upon the land. The king chose to, as he put it, fall into the hands of the Lord, which meant the pestilence. Tens of thousands died throughout Israel until the death angel was stopped just before entering Jerusalem. David pleaded for mercy and was able to build an altar to God on a particular threshing floor. The pestilence was thus halted. It would be the threshing floor location on which David appeased God and ended him and the nation being punished. That another momentous event would take place. That sentence doesn't make sense, okay? His sacrifice for taking a census took place on Mount Moriah. This is the same mount where Abraham was to sacrifice his son Isaac. It is also the exact spot chosen by King Solomon to build God's magnificent temple. Okay, so I asked that question. I said to myself, what's the significance of this threshing floor? Like, they could have been anywhere to stop. But I'm assuming from what I'm reading that the threshing floor location. Okay, I read the sentence wrong. It would be the threshing floor location on which David appeased God and ended the nation being punished, that another momentous event would take place. His sacrifice for taking the census took place on Mount Moriah, which is the same mount where Abraham was to sacrifice his son Isaac. It is also the exact spot chosen by King Solomon to build God's magnificent temple. All right, very cool, very, very cool. I do not remember reading this particular article, but I am going to copy and paste it into the description of this particular video. So if anybody wants to go back and look, they can check it out. It is at biblestudy.org. That is where I got my answer from, BibleStudy.org. Ladies and gentlemen, we are just under an hour, and I am all done reading to you. To my people on Facebook, I'm going to let you go, but first I'm going to do a quick outro prayer. And on that note, yeah. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for this opportunity, Tuesday, to read the Bible, not just for myself, which is my New Year's resolution, but to anyone ready, willing, and able to come and listen to it as I'm on the internet. And Lord, thank you for your many blessings. I pray that the people listening will be blessed and also are motivated and inspired to read the Bible in their own time so they can come to their own understanding, build their own faith and their relationship with you, find some purpose, read the Bible and find some purpose in their life, find some ways to deal with life, and live their best life. That is my prayer, Lord. Amen. Amen. On that note, I'll see you guys later, Facebook. And right before it plays over again, I'm going to do that like that. And for all you guys who are still watching on YouTube, hi, how are you? Okay, so yes, I will see you guys tomorrow. We are still in week 28 of reading the Bible. Tomorrow, we're still going to be in the book of Chronicles. And yes, I hope you enjoyed today's reading. I hope it encouraged you to read some Bible on your own. And yeah, on that note, I will see you guys tomorrow morning.